Today is difficult. Tomorrow is much more difficult. The day after tomorrow is beautiful. Most people die tomorrow evening.
If you say, I failed because my teacher was bad, then your teacher controls your growth. If you say, there are no opportunities in my country, then your country controls your destiny. Every excuse might contain some truth. But even if it is true, what does it change? Does it make you stronger? Does it move you forward? Or does it simply justify your current position? Ownership is different. Ownership is uncomfortable. It says, maybe the situation was unfair, but what can I do about it? It shifts the focus from what happened to what's possible. When you take ownership, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what can I learn from this? That small shift changes everything. Taking ownership does not mean you are responsible for everything that happens to you. Life is unpredictable. Sometimes you will face obstacles you did not choose. You may be born into financial struggle. You may face rejection. You may experience failure despite your effort. Ownership means you are responsible for your response, and your response is where your power lives. Imagine two people facing the same failure. One says, this is unfair. The system is against me. The other says, what did I miss? What skill do I need to improve? Who can I learn from? The first person protects their pride. The second person builds their future. After 5 years, their lives will look completely different. Not because one had fewer problems, but because one chose responsibility over excuses. Blaming also creates a victim mindset. And a victim mindset is dangerous because it feels righteous. You start collecting evidence to support your story. You notice every disadvantage. Every setback becomes proof that you're unlucky. Slowly, your identity becomes tied to struggle. And once struggle becomes identity, growth becomes difficult. Why? Because changing your life would mean changing your story. Ownership requires humility. It requires admitting that you could have done better. That maybe you wasted time. That maybe you avoided risk. That maybe you didn't prepare enough. That maybe you were distracted. These admissions hurt. But they are powerful. Because the moment you admit you could have done better, you realize you can do better next time. People who own their lives are not perfect. They make mistakes. Many mistakes. But instead of hiding from them, they analyze them. Instead of blaming others, they ask hard questions. They treat failure as feedback, not as an attack. They understand that every mistake contains a lesson, and lessons are more valuable than temporary comfort. Ownership also builds confidence. This might sound surprising, but it's true. When you blame others, you feel powerless. When you take responsibility, you feel capable. Because if your actions created your current results, then your actions can create new results. That belief gives you energy. It gives you direction. It gives you control. There is also something else. When you stop blaming, you stop wasting time. Blaming consumes mental energy. You replay conversations in your head. You complain to friends. You scroll and compare. You build arguments to defend your position. All of that energy could have been used to improve one skill, read one book, start one project, make one connection. Blaming feels active, but it produces nothing. Taking ownership shifts you from reactive to proactive. Instead of waiting for motivation, you create discipline. Instead of waiting for opportunities, you create value. Instead of waiting for perfect conditions, you start with what you have. You may not control the weather, but you control how you sail. Some people misunderstand ownership as self-blame. That is not the same thing. Self-blame says, I am useless. Ownership says, I need to improve. Self-blame attacks identity. Ownership focuses on action. The goal is to grow. When you look at successful individuals, one pattern appears again and again. They do not waste time complaining about the hand they were dealt. They focus on playing the hand well. They adapt, they learn, they pivot, they accept reality quickly and then move forward. While others are still discussing whose fault it was, they are already building the next step. If you truly want to eliminate destructive habits from your life, start with excuses. Catch yourself when you say, I can't because, challenge that sentence. Replace it with, how can I? That small shift forces your brain to search for solutions instead of reasons to quit. Responsibility is not heavy once you understand it. It is liberating because it reminds you that you are not stuck. You are not defined by your past. You are not limited by one failure. You are not controlled by other people's opinions. You are shaped by your decisions. At the end of the day, your life will not be determined by how many times you were treated unfairly. It will be determined by how many times you chose to respond with courage instead of excuses. Blame keeps you average. Ownership makes you powerful. The moment you stop blaming is the moment you start leading your own life. There is a dangerous addiction that does not look like an addiction. It doesn't come in a bottle. It doesn't destroy you overnight. It feels safe. It feels warm. It feels reasonable. It is the addiction to comfort. Comfort is seductive because it feels like peace. Waking up late feels comfortable. Avoiding difficult conversations feels comfortable. Choosing entertainment over improvement feels comfortable. Staying in a familiar environment, even if it limits you, feels comfortable. But comfort has a hidden cost. It slowly shrinks your potential while convincing you that everything is fine. Growth and comfort cannot live in the same space for long. One will always replace the other. If you choose comfort repeatedly, growth leaves quietly. And when growth leaves, regret eventually arrives. The addiction to comfort begins with small decisions. You tell yourself you will start tomorrow. You tell yourself you deserve a break. You tell yourself you need more preparation before taking action. Each excuse sounds logical. Each delay feels harmless. But over time, these small delays become habits, and habits shape identity. Comfort creates routine, and routine creates predictability. Predictability feels secure. But predictability can also trap you. If every day looks the same, your results will look the same. If your habits never challenge you, your life will never expand. You cannot expect extraordinary outcomes from ordinary effort. The problem is not comfort itself. Rest is necessary. Stability is important. A problem is attachment to comfort. When you become emotionally dependent on ease, you start avoiding anything that feels difficult. And difficulty is the gate to improvement. Think about learning a new skill. At first it feels uncomfortable. You feel slow. You feel confused. You make mistakes. Your ego feels threatened. That discomfort is a signal that you are stretching. But if you run back to comfort every time you feel challenged, you never pass the beginner stage. You remain stuck in what is easy, not in what is meaningful. Comfort also disguises fear. Many times when people say, "I'm just not ready," what they really mean is, "I'm afraid to fail." When they say, "This is good enough," what they mean is, "I don't want to risk losing what I have." Comfort protects you from embarrassment, from rejection, from uncertainty, but it also protects you from achievement. Nothing remarkable is built inside a comfort zone. Muscles grow when they are stressed. Minds expand when they are challenged. Confidence increases when you face what intimidates you and survive. If you avoid stress completely, you avoid growth completely. The addiction to comfort makes you negotiate with your dreams. Instead of asking, "What is possible?" you start asking, "What is convenient?" Instead of pushing your limits, you protect your routine. You lower your standards to fit your habits instead of raising your habits to fit your standards. There is also a psychological trap. The longer you stay comfortable, the harder it becomes to leave. When you get used to a certain lifestyle, even if it is average, the idea of starting from zero feels terrifying. You become more concerned with protecting what you have than building what you could have. Comfort shifts the focus from progress to preservation. But here is the truth. Comfort today often becomes discomfort tomorrow. If you avoid studying now, you struggle later. If you avoid building skills now, you feel insecure later. If you avoid taking risks now, you experience regret later. Short-term comfort creates long-term pain. On the other hand, short-term discomfort creates long-term freedom. Waking up early feels uncomfortable at first, but it builds discipline. Speaking up feels uncomfortable at first, but it builds confidence. Starting a project feels uncomfortable at first, but it builds momentum. Discomfort is not your enemy, it is your trainer. You must learn to reinterpret discomfort. Instead of seeing it as a warning sign to stop, see it as evidence that you are evolving. When your heart beats faster before a challenge, that is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign that you are stepping into something meaningful. When you feel nervous about growth, it means you are leaving your old identity behind. Breaking the addiction to comfort requires awareness. Notice where you choose ease over improvement. Notice how often you delay important tasks because they feel hard. Notice the excuses you use to protect your routine. Once you become aware, you can interrupt the pattern. Start small. Do one thing every day that makes you slightly uncomfortable. Speak to someone new. Learn something difficult. Take on a responsibility that stretches you. Over time, your comfort zone expands. What once felt scary becomes normal, and then you stretch again. The goal is not to live in constant stress. The goal is to become comfortable with discomfort. To understand that growth requires friction. To accept that uncertainty is part of ambition. To realize that progress will always feel awkward in the beginning. Most people stay average not because they lack talent, but because they love comfort too much. They choose entertainment over education. They choose safety over possibility. They choose routine over risk. And years later, they wonder why their life never changed. Your future depends on your willingness to be uncomfortable today. The conversations you avoid, the work you delay, the risks you fear, those are often the exact doors that lead to expansion. When you train yourself to walk toward discomfort instead of away from it, you gain an advantage that most people never develop. Comfort feels good now. Growth feels good later. You must decide which feeling you value more. If you chase comfort, you may gain temporary relief. If you chase growth, you gain strength, skill, and self-respect. The moment you stop worshiping comfort is the moment you start unlocking potential. Because on the other side of discomfort is confidence. On the other side of risk is opportunity. On the other side of fear is transformation. Comfort will always invite you back. It will whisper that you have done enough. It will tell you to relax, to wait, to settle. But if you listen too long, you will settle for less than you are capable of becoming. Choose the harder path when it matters. Choose growth over ease. Choose expansion over familiarity. Because the life you dream about does not exist inside your comfort zone. It exists just beyond it, waiting for you to step forward. One of the most underestimated forces shaping your future is the environment you tolerate. Not because you lost ability, but because you adapted to your surroundings. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with driven individuals, something changes. Their discipline influences you. Their standards challenge you. Their progress motivates you. You begin to raise your own expectations. You feel inspired to grow, not pressured to shrink. Even beyond physical relationships, your digital environment matters. The content you consume daily shapes your thinking. If your social media feed is filled with negativity, drama, and distraction, your focus weakens. If it is filled with education, inspiration, and insight, your perspective strengthens. Your environment is not just who you sit with, it is what you scroll through. Removing negative circles does not always require confrontation. Sometimes it simply requires boundaries. Spending less time in draining conversations, redirecting discussions toward constructive topics, choosing solitude over unproductive company, choosing quality over quantity. Solitude, in fact, can be powerful. Many people stay in limiting circles because they fear being alone. Being alone temporarily is better than being constantly influenced in the wrong direction. Solitude allows clarity. It gives you space to think independently. It helps you rediscover your own voice without noise. You must ask yourself a difficult question. Do the people around me encourage my growth or justify my stagnation? Do they celebrate improvement or criticize ambition? Do they hold me accountable or comfort me when I avoid responsibility? The answers may be uncomfortable. Clarity is necessary for progress. Remember, you become similar to what surrounds you, not instantly, but inevitably. Attitudes transfer, standards transfer, mindsets transfer. If you want to change your results, sometimes you must change your environment first. This does not mean you look down on others. It means you value your potential enough to protect it. You choose influences that stretch you instead of shrink you. You choose conversations that build you instead of drain you. You choose circles that demand growth instead of celebrating comfort. The future is not only shaped by your effort, it is shaped by your exposure. Choose wisely who you allow close to your mind and your time. Because over years, their voice becomes your inner voice. Their beliefs become your assumptions. Their limits can become your limits. If you want to eliminate habits that hold you back, start by eliminating environments that normalize them. Growth is difficult enough on its own. Do not make it harder by surrounding yourself with people who resist it. When you step into a stronger circle, you step into a stronger version of yourself. And sometimes the most powerful decision you can make is not about working harder, but about choosing better influences. Fear of failure is one of the most silent yet destructive habits a person can carry. It does not shout, it whispers. It does not stop you by force, it convinces you gently. It tells you to wait, to prepare more, to avoid embarrassment, to stay safe. And while you're listening to that voice, time moves forward without you. Failure itself is not the real problem. The real problem is the meaning you attach to failure. If you believe failure defines your intelligence, your worth, or your future, then of course you will avoid it. If you believe one mistake will label you as incapable, you will hesitate before every bold move. Fear grows when you treat failure as identity instead of information. Most people are not afraid of failing. They are afraid of judgment. They are afraid of looking foolish. They are afraid of hearing others say, "I told you so." They are afraid of proving their own doubts correct. This fear creates paralysis. You begin to overthink every decision. You delay action. You aim for perfection. And in trying to avoid failure, you avoid growth. Perfectionism is often just fear in disguise. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right moment, the right skills, the perfect plan. But perfection does not exist at the beginning. It is built through repetition, through error, through correction. If you refuse to start until you are certain of success, you will never start at all. Every skill you admire in someone else was once awkward. Every successful project was once uncertain. Every confident speaker was once nervous. The difference is they allowed themselves to fail publicly, to learn visibly, to grow gradually. They did not wait to feel ready. They move forward despite not feeling ready. Fear of failure keeps you in imagination. You imagine worst-case scenarios. You imagine humiliation. You imagine loss. Your mind creates stories of disaster before you even attempt the task. These imagined failures often feel more painful than real ones. But they are illusions. And illusions should not control your decisions. Failure is feedback. It tells you what did not work. It reveals gaps in skill, strategy, or preparation. Without failure, you remain unaware of your weakness. Without awareness, improvement is impossible. If you remove the fear of failure, you unlock the ability to experiment. And experimentation is the birthplace of innovation. Think about learning to walk. As a child, you fell many times. You did not analyze each fall as proof that walking was not for you. You did not compare yourself to other children and conclude you were incapable. You simply stood up again. Over time, falling became part of the process, not a threat to your identity. Somewhere along the way, you forgot that mindset. Society often punishes failure emotionally. It celebrates winners loudly and criticizes losers quickly. This social pressure creates fear. But behind every visible success are invisible failures. Attempts that did not work, plans that collapsed, ideas that were rejected. What you see is the final version, not the journey. When you remove fear of failure, you become bold, not reckless, but courageous. You take calculated risks. You accept uncertainty. You step into opportunities that others avoid. You understand that even if you fail, you will gain experience, and experience compounds over time. There is also a deeper truth. Avoiding failure does not protect you from pain. It only changes the type of pain. If you take action and fail, you feel temporary disappointment. If you avoid action completely, you feel long-term regret. Regret is heavier. It stays longer. It whispers years later asking, what if? Fear also exaggerates consequences. You think one failure will ruin your reputation forever. In reality, people move on quickly. They are too busy with their own lives to focus on your mistakes. The spotlight you imagine is often much smaller than you think. Removing fear of failure requires reframing. Instead of asking, what if I fail? Ask, what will I learn? Instead of asking, what will people think? Ask, what will I think of myself if I never try? This shift moves you from external validation to internal growth. Confidence does not come from avoiding mistakes, it comes from surviving them. Each time you fail and continue, your resilience strengthens. You realize you are not fragile. You realize you can recover. That realization builds unshakable belief. Fear shrinks your world. It limits your choices. It convinces you to aim lower so you do not miss. But aiming lower guarantees smaller results. So if you want extraordinary outcomes, you must accept extraordinary risk. And risk always includes the possibility of failure. You cannot separate success from failure. They are connected. Failure teaches direction. It refines strategy. Strengthens character. It removes arrogance. It builds patience. If you eliminate the fear of it, you remove one of the biggest barriers between you and progress. It is important to understand that failure is an event, not a person. You failed at something. You are not a failure. The event ends. The lesson remains. If you attach failure to your identity, you stop trying. If you treat it as data, you keep evolving. The people who achieve remarkable things are not those who never fail. They are those who fail faster, learn quicker, and adjust smarter. They reduce emotional attachment to outcomes. They focus on process. They understand that mastery is built on repetition, and repetition includes mistakes. If you wait until fear disappears, you will wait forever. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is action despite fear. When your heart races and your mind doubts and you move forward anyway, that is growth. That is transformation. Eliminating fear of failure does not mean you enjoy failing. It means you respect it. You understand it's wrong. You use it as a teacher instead of treating it as a judge. You stop running from it and start learning from it. At the end of your life, you will not regret the failures that shaped you. You will regret the risks you avoided because you were afraid. So take the step. Make the attempt. Launch the idea. Speak your truth. Try, even if you stumble. Because failure is temporary, but the courage to try changes you permanently. Now we have reached the moment that truly matters. Not the motivation, not the words, not the energy, the decision. Because inspiration without decision is entertainment. And you are not here to be entertained. You are here to transform. You have just looked into the mirror. You have seen the habits that quietly weaken you, the excuses that protect your ego but destroy your future, the comfort that feels safe but keeps you small, the circles that influence your thinking, the fear that whispers, don't try. And now you have a choice. You can close this video and go back to the same routine, or you can draw a line today. Understand something powerful. Your life will not change because of one big opportunity. It will change because of small eliminations. The moment you stop blaming, you take control. The moment you step into discomfort, you grow. The moment you distance yourself from negativity, you elevate. The moment you act despite fear, you evolve. This is not about becoming perfect overnight. It's about refusing to tolerate what is holding you back. Most people will hear these words and feel motivated for a few minutes. They will not. They will agree. And then they will continue living the same way. But a few, just a few, will decide differently. A few will take this as a wake-up call. A few will start with one change today. And those few will look back 1 year from now and barely recognize themselves. Ask yourself right now, which group will you belong to? The uncomfortable truth is this: nobody is coming to save you. Nobody is responsible for your growth. Nobody will eliminate your bad habits for you. Your future is not a gift. It is a construction project. And you are the builder. Imagine yourself 1 year from today. If you remove the habits we discussed, just imagine the discipline, the clarity, the confidence you could build. Imagine the respect you would earn. Imagine the strength you would feel knowing you face discomfort instead of running from it. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is a result of consistent decisions. But the clock is ticking. Time does not care about your potential. It only responds to your actions. So when this video ends, don't let it end with emotion. Let it begin with commitment. Choose one habit to eliminate today, not tomorrow, not next week, today. Take one uncomfortable action. Make one bold move. Set one new standard. Because the difference between who you are and who you could become is not talent. What you tolerate continues. What you eliminate transforms you. And years from now, when you look back at this moment, you will either say, oh, that was just another video. Or you will say, that was the day I decided to change. The choice is yours.